Who would have thought that we would ever see the inflation rate of the BRICS countries being on average like probably about 3% lower than the inflation rates of like the US, Germany, UK, the old European countries. Who would ever think that we would see that in our lifetime? So it's very, very interesting. Why that is the case? Why the inflation rate is actually less in the BRICS countries compared to, this is now excluding Russia. Obviously, we can't really count Russia. China is also amazing. I mean, China's sitting on like 3% or something, but we all do know that they control their currency very, very well. They've stockpiled a lot of dollars and gold, and they actually use that to control the value of their currency. So they're sitting on like 3%, which is ridiculously low. But who would think that we would ever see that? So the economic powerhouses of the world is just losing value at a rapid rate, while the seemingly junk countries, the trash countries, or like Donald Trump says, they're actually fine. So who would have thought that? So I've been like trying to think what might be the result of all this. Where would we sit in the next 6 to 7 months? So as we know, the whole world is slowly but surely going into a recession. This is a global recession. This is not just going to be a US recession or a European recession. This is global. But what would be the impact on the BRICS countries? Because their economies do work quite a bit different than the US and the European countries. There's a couple of reasons. One of the main reasons, obviously, being is that they are considered they junk bonds. So the investors that do invest in them is a little bit different. That's very risky to obviously put your money in a junk bond, and so there's definitely an investor difference where it's almost like the countries are used to not having good investor sentiment, so they sort of fine with it. It can they're used to that status. So it might be that the recession doesn't actually hit the BRICS countries too badly because they used to constantly have bad rep when it comes to investors, whereas the more Western countries, the European and the US, they're used to having very, very good bond status. They've used to having a lot of good investor sentiment into their countries, their stocks, what have you. So let's get this car to come past. So that's the one thing that might actually cause the BRICS countries to not have a big recession. So I still believe that there will be a recession. I don't think we will. Obviously, if this is a worldwide thing, everybody's going to get hurt. I don't think there's going to be any country that doesn't have a recession, unless it's like North Korea or something. So somebody that's very, very separate from the world, that's completely disconnected from the global network of money. The other thing that I think is also going to be a good thing, especially obviously this is now mainly for South Africa and Brazil, is the fact that we're going into summer now. So this is going to be the first summer since Corona that there's no masks. I don't know about Brazil, but in South Africa this is the case. And people are starved. They are starved for basically fun. They want to go out and they want to have fun. And I can see that. Yeah, in South Africa I can see people they want to get out. They want to get out and have fun. The music is pumping everywhere. We're getting every weekend. There's constant music complaints on the WhatsApp groups and the Telegram groups about obviously everybody in the area. There's lots of concerts as well. We're constantly having new concerts, like big concerts every weekend now. So people are catching up, and that's good for the economy. If people want to go out, and our main holiday is December, that's when it's basically our spring break. In South Africa, it falls in December, so because that's our peak of our summer, and that's when people mainly basically they go out and they go on holiday and they have fun. And because it's summer, obviously, people, they go very far out. So, and people are tired, they want to have this holiday. So I think the general consumer sentiment towards spending is going to increase in, I think, especially South Africa and Brazil, those two countries. And obviously, because they're closely tied to the other BRICS countries, they might actually assist the other BRICS countries because their economies are going to boom. Because it's all about the sort of the money network of countries and the groups. So that's another thing, is basically the seasonality. And as we know, when people in the country want to spend, that's when things are good. A recession is basically when your general consumer actually doesn't spend. So money flows slower. That's when you go into a recession. And then the other thing is the sort of the separateness. This is mainly South Africa. South Africa is quite separate from the rest of the world, mainly because of its locality. It is in the southern part of Africa, so it's very far away from a lot of countries, a lot of the big powerhouse economies. It's very far away. So as a result, we are fairly independent. We obviously, shipping is expensive. We don't have major water dependencies, major electrical dependencies. If economies around us collapse, it doesn't really affect us that much. This is mainly South Africa. We also, we do have a grid that's failing. The electricity here, basically, it seems like it's a permanent thing now, where for a couple of hours a day, there's just no power. So when you plug your cell phone into charge, there's just nothing. And that's the norm now. And people are starting to work around it. I've recently installed solar in my house and batteries and the whole kit, purely because that's the way we have to go. There's not really another way. The power grid will eventually fail, but people are finding ways around it. Lots of big businesses here. I know Standard Bank, Vodacom, Telkom, there's one or two others that are basically completely off grid now. Like all their data centers, offices, major head offices, etc., are all off grid. So they run completely with solar panels, batteries, inverters. The whole thing is off grid, and it's slowly happening to everything else. So stuff like the power grid becomes less important. The cost of electricity becomes less important because everybody's independent. The other interesting thing I also think might play a big role in this recession is the what's the right word? Basically, people are used to high interest rates. In South Africa, in Brazil, in India, in China, in Russia, people are just used to high interest rates. It's a normal thing. Whereas if we don't, let's say interest rate goes up by 2 or 3%, it doesn't actually make a difference. If your interest rate goes up from, let's say, 9% to 12%, not much of a difference. It's it's slightly more difficult. But if you are in some of the Western countries, your European and the US, and you go up by 3%, suddenly it means that your interest rate doubles or triples. It's a massive change because you're going from 2% to 5% or whatever. So because you're so low, the whole economy is not used to that. People are used to the way the economies function, because debt is so expensive, is different. So I think the BRICS countries, as a result, is a little bit more resilient to recession, because if interest rates goes up, not a lot of people will default on their loans. Things pretty much carry on, and I can see it. I don't see any form of a slowdown physically in the streets, talking to people. Life sort of just seems to carry on. I don't really see the panic that the rest of the world is going through. I don't see it in South Africa. I don't know about the other BRICS countries. If any one of you is in other BRICS countries, I would really love to know. So please leave a comment. I would love to know what's happening in those countries. What's the general consensus? Are people actually talking about the recession? Because nobody's mentioning recession. Nobody's planning for economical downturn. Nobody's worried. Life literally just carrying on. Whereas in other countries, people are panicking. I'm talking about the Western countries. They're all panicking. Everybody's stressed about the recession. They can see that things are going down, but I don't see it. So yes, please leave a comment. I would like to know what the other BRICS countries. Obviously, I'm not in these countries, so I wouldn't know. But it's just like to hear the general consumer what they think. So I think that there will definitely be a recession in the BRICS countries, but I think it won't be close to as severe as the first world countries. Mainly because of the reasons I've mentioned, but I think it might be good for us. It might bring some investors over to the BRICS countries, which will be awesome. And at least we can carry on. We won't have as much pain. So if you like this video, remember to press the button, and if you want to see more, remember to subscribe. This is Steve. Until next time, ciao.